After 1,000 years, Korriban is ours again. Welcome home.
When darkness finds you, you will face it alone. This can mean only one thing: invasion.
For the galaxy to survive, you must fall. We must fight to victory or death. You don't even begin to comprehend what I've become.
We have unfinished business.
Today we are greeted on stream with none other than David Hayter. David is, of course, world-renowned in the video game industry. He is notoriously known, of course, in a past life as none other than Solid Snake. We know him in today's world as being the male Jedi Knight in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Thank you so much for giving your time to us today, David.
Well, thank you for having me, Kieran. It's a pleasure to be here on That Duck Sauce.
And, of course, we will have questions popping away in chat as expected. First of all, I'd like to kickstart by asking, what made you want to go into the entertainment industry to begin with, David?
Well, I had no other skills except for entertaining people. What made me want to go into it? I did a play when I was 9 years old, and at the Costa Mesa Civic Playhouse, and afterwards, a young lady asked me for my autograph, and that pretty much sealed the deal. I was like, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. There we go. Oh, we're getting a lot of echoes here.
A lot of echoes? Let's have a little look at the settings, shall we? It might be on your end. I'm not too sure. If you've got the sound on my stream, that might be the reason behind it, David.
I don't. I have it muted. Is there anything else I can do?
Let's have a little look.
Echo. Echo is on David's end, it says. No, I can't mute myself. I don't. Any advice?
It beats me. Looking at the settings, I'm gonna turn my speakers down a little bit, see if that helps. Can we get a line from you?
Kept you waiting, huh? Gave you an echo, huh?
I think that works.
It's only echoey when David is speaking. Maybe that's just my natural vocal impact.
That might be the case. We might have to roll with it for the moment, guys. So, David, did you have any particular inspirations growing up? Whether it's actors, actresses, voice artists?
Yeah, sorry, I'm watching the echo discussion on the chat. Well, for anybody who's listening, I'm talking into this mic on the thing, and that's all. So I don't. If you have any advice, let me know. Did I have any? Well, I just loved movies growing up. I was very inspired by Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford was a huge influence on me. And Tom Cruise. I thought it'd be cool to be Tom Cruise.
I'm guessing Top Gun was a big factor behind that.
Yeah, well, Top Gun came out when I lived in Japan, and so we maybe lower the volume on my mic. Is that any better? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you fine.
Okay. Anyway, Japan, we had a lot of movies, so the ones that we did, we saw a lot, and I saw it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the theater, and really helped me shape my personality and my cocky attitude.
So what was the reason? Because you, if I remember rightly, you were about 15-year-old when you moved to Japan.
I just turned 16.
So what was the reasoning behind that then?
My dad worked for a big company, biotech company called Avid Laboratories, and we got transferred over to Japan so that he could take over the Asian division. And I got dragged along as a teenage gaijin expat student.
And then, if I remember rightly, you graduated from the International Canadian Academy and then from Ringlasa Polytechnic. What did you major in?
No, it says it says somewhere on Wikipedia or something that it's Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I don't know what that is. I graduated high school from the Canadian Academy in Japan. I went to university at Ryerson University in Toronto, and I majored in acting. I went to the acting school there for a year, and then I was like, "To hell with this! I'm going to Hollywood."
You saw the stars in your eyes at that point, and you thought, "Yeah, let's go for the big move and see how things work out."
It was mostly geared towards theater and musical theater and stuff like that, and that was really fun. But I wanted to do movies. I was like, I'm too good looking to be in theater. So that was my reasoning. So when I was 20, I hopped in my car and I drove to Los Angeles, and I found an apartment and been here ever since.
So, starting at the beginning of your career, you'd already done a number of anime language dubs between the mid-90s and early 2000s, and then had done some voice work as Captain America in the Spider-Man animated series as well. But what drew you to take a leap from working on the animated TV series stuff to then working with Konami on the Metal Gear Solid projects?
Well, it wasn't really optional for me. I was just scrounging for work wherever I could get it, and I was lucky enough to do the Spider-Man show, and a bunch of anime, early anime work. And then I just got an audition. I got called in to read for Snake. Chris Zimmerman, our English language voice director, called me in, and I had worked with her on Captain Planet on my very first Hollywood voiceover job. So she was kind enough to call me in. I did the thing. I got the part, and here we are talking about it 22 years later. It's amazing.
How did you manage to actually come up with the voices that you've managed to create over the years? I mean, looking back at Solid Snake as a prime example, you were like, 27, 28 years old when you took that role on, and he's considerably older than that. So having gone with more of a gravelly effect on your vocals, how did you come up with those kinds of ideas to be able to pitch to Konami at the time?
Well, I didn't pitch him to Konami. I read for the part with my voice, which is like this. And when I was younger, I mean, it was even more like this. And so I sounded very young, and then I got the script and I started reading it, and it was like, he's already retired and he's already a legend, and he's tired of being on the battlefield, and he just doesn't want to be dragged back in. And I felt like my natural voice, the one I got the part with, was not appropriate for this guy who had been through so much, and felt like he was older than me. And so I just, put a little more gravel into it, put a little more regret and weight, and and then I just came in and started working on it. And it wasn't until halfway through the first day that Chris said, "Can I play you back the voice you auditioned with?" And I said, "Yeah." And so she did. And I said, "Do you want me to go back and do it like that?" And she's like, "No, I like this. Let's stick with it." So that's how it happened.
I noticed as well while you were answering that, we actually had a question in chat asking, is it true that David auditioned for the voice of Otacon at first? Of course, Otacon has been very successfully pitched by Christopher Randolph over the years, but is that true or not, David?
No, Usagiru, who said so many kind things in the chat, has it right. Christopher Randolph auditioned for Snake, and and he was reading for it, and then I just heard this story, and then he, I don't know how it happened. He saw a drawing of Otacon, and he was like, "Who's that?" Because it looked just like him. And so they said, "Why don't you read for Otacon?" And he did, and the rest is history.
So it's weird in the voiceover industry how gutsy moves like that more often than not turn out to pay off very, very well. One thing that I did notice in preparation for today's interview, you mentioned on the Metal Gear Celebration live stream a few weeks ago about how when you guys did the voice work on the Metal Gear games, generally you were kind of clumbered together in a recording studio, but has that been similar when you've been recording stuff for Star Wars: The Old Republic, or have you generally had to do stuff on an individual basis?
No. When we did Metal Gear, I always insisted when we negotiated the contract that all of the actors would be together so that I could do the scenes with them and that they'd sound more real. On Star Wars: The Old Republic, it's very different because you have choices for the lines you're going to do, light side choices, dark side choices, snarky choices, what have you. And so everything is recorded individually in chunks of dialogue, and nothing is connected to anything else. So what you get is the script has the line before it that's being said to you and your response. And so you have to make it sound like you're having a full conversation, and I think we do a pretty good job, but it's a very different style of recording.
While taking the role of the male Jedi Knight, was that the role that was offered to you, or did they approach you with a view of, David would like you to come and work on our project, which character would you like to pick, or did they make this character specifically around your vocals? Can you give us any kind of input on how that came about, being the male Jedi Knight?
Yeah, well, the story, as far as I know it, is that they had already cast it, and somebody else got the part. I didn't read for it, I didn't know anything about it. And then for whatever reason, that actor had to drop out, and so they were looking for somebody to play the male Jedi voice. And Jennifer Hale, who of course is on the game and is on every game, and rightfully so because she's a legend, said, "Well, what about David Hayter?" And they said, "Would he do it? Do you think he'd do it?" And she was like, "Yeah, play a Jedi? Yeah, I think he would." So she called me up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And that was 12 years ago. I've been doing it I think this year will make it that I've been doing the male Jedi voice longer than I did Snake, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's remarkable how quick time can fly by when you're having fun, I suppose.
Indeed.
So,
but that's how it happened. I just like, it's so funny because people don't think to contact me for voice work because they think I'm, I don't know, too big for it or something, which is ridiculous because I love voiceover. It's the best job in the world, and so I was thrilled that they were thrilled, and we've had a great time doing the game ever since.
Did you take any inspiration from any other actors or voice actors in the Star Wars franchise when you were taking on this role?
Not to develop voice gravel, so that it really wouldn't sound like Snake. And the description was Christopher Reeve from Superman. So, heroic and honest and strong. And then as we were doing it, they'd say, can you give it a little more Jedi? And so I'd give it sort of a feel of not the voice of Alec Guinness, but the attitude of Alec Guinness. Just that, you will tell me what I need to know. And so I took the inspiration from Jedis I had seen and sort of that Zen quality of there's a lot of confrontations. You're killing a lot of people, but as opposed to Snake, who will really lay into you, this guy is a lot more Zen, and he's a lot more like, you don't want to do this, and then he'll cut off your, parts.
What were your thoughts as you were taking on the Metal Gear project in terms of where the video game industry was going? Because at that point, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 had released on the 3DO, and they were originally going to release what is now known as Metal Gear Solid on the 3DO, but had actually moved it onto PlayStation after the 3DO had been discontinued. Was that kind of the realization for you that actually games are going quite a big way forward here? This could actually end up being bigger than what the movie industry is eventually? Or did you kind of realize a little bit later on as quality and produce had actually got better over time?
Well, I was a big gamer from, the time they invented games, and I really, when I saw the first day working on Metal Gear, the first Metal Gear, they showed me a cutscene from when Snake takes out the Hind D helicopter, and it was so huge and so cinematic and beautiful that's when I thought, this is a game changer. And loving games the way that I do, and like console gaming, I felt like there could definitely be a world in which games became as big, as profitable, as widely seen as movies. And it did. So it just, just watching that first scene, I was like, I think we're into a new era here.
Yeah. I mean, for me, growing up in the 90s, I typically grew up playing Zelda, which still remains probably one of my all-time favorite franchises. The likes of Super Mario, Donkey Kong, GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
But when you take that first step, that first playthrough going through the Metal Gear game, it kind of personified the future of gaming moving forward, because I think up until then, any game that you were playing was generally puzzle-based and strategically based. Like with Zelda, for example, you got to do certain puzzles to be able to get certain items to move forward in the game. But when you look at some of the cutscenes that were going on within Metal Gear, prime example is what happened with Sniper Wolf and Otacon. And that was... It came across for me, looking back now, as very much Stockholm Syndrome kind of feel to it. But that gave the gamer, the player, an actual opportunity to really connect to the game. Not just connect to the lead player, but connect to the actual cast, the actual people that are involved in the game. And I think since then we've really seen a shift moving forward where a lot more games are like that nowadays, and you start actually seeing those kinds of connections with the players and with the characters as well. But if you were in a situation, David, where you could voice absolutely any animated character, who would you choose?
Well, like I say, any voice job is a great voice job. I always wanted to play Batman, just because he's been a big inspiration to me. You can see my cowl up there, and just for emergencies in case there's crime in my neighborhood. And yeah, Batman would be pretty amazing. It'd be kind of cool to do Wolverine, having written for Wolverine. And I guess those would be my two go-tos.
I was actually going to touch on the work that you've done with Bryan Singer as well, because you had done some producing on Burn, and then your first writing project was actually on X-Men with Bryan Singer. So how did that opportunity come about? Did you already have a friendship with him over the years, or is this something that came about as a matter of luck of the draw at the time?
Yeah, I knew Bryan. I met him. He was a young filmmaker just before he and my very good friend Chris McQuarrie, who wrote Usual Suspects, and they took this movie to Sundance called Public Access, and they won Sundance with it. And I met them just prior to that, and so and then I worked. I got it. It was very weird. They knew I knew Bryan and the Usual Suspects, like the cast. So this publicity company asked me to go to Cannes and help them. I also speak, moderately decent French. And so they asked me to go and translate for them and show them around Cannes. And so that's where I got to know Bryan. And then I produced this little movie, Burn, for myself and Randall Slavin to star in. And Bryan put his name on it, which helped me raise the money. And then after that, I was a broke film producer and I needed a job. And Bryan was kind enough to give me a job answering the phones on X-Men. And then I turned out to be one of the few people on staff who had read the X-Men comic books and really knew it. And so he started talking to me about scenes, and he started asking me to write scenes. And eventually I ended up becoming the screenwriter of the movie. I mean, it was just a crazy experience. And that was my big break.
Do you find that you feel comfortable?
Hi to Turkey, by the way. Hello, Turkey.
Do you feel comfortable as a as somebody being able to diversely change between doing voice work, on-screen work, producing, writing? Do you find that you've got more of a niche in one particular area than another, or is this something that you feel comfortable just chopping and changing between?
No, well, I've been doing all of it for so long that I can, when I'm in the booth to do a voice, I'm there to do the voice, and when I sit down to write, TV or movies, I go into that headspace, and it's really just, it's the difference between your brain when you're like reading a book or playing a guitar. It's two different brain spaces, but if you do enough practicing, you get used to dropping into one or the other or both, and I love them all. I've spent my whole life trying to become a better actor, trying to become a better writer, trying to become a better producer, better director. It's all a process.
Yeah.
And just to answer Shane Usagiru's question, my favorite Star Wars movie is Empire Strikes Back.
Same here, I agree.
Because that's the best Star Wars. So there you go. So yeah, but it's also kind of cool to be able to work in different areas of the entertainment business and not just be reliant on getting voice work or writing work or whatever. I'm writing this TV show right now. I'm a writer on Warrior Nun for Netflix, which I'm very proud of. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty fun show. And so I'm working on that right now. And then the other day I got called in to do a part in a very cool movie, animated movie that I can't talk about yet. And it's just, it's a pretty nice life I live.
What kind of things would you say challenge you most as a voice actor or a writer? What kind of difficulties would you say are the hardest ones for you to overcome? And do you tend to gravitate towards those challenges, or do you tend to shy away from them and try and avoid them as much as you possibly can?
What kind of challenges? Well, when I was a kid, when I started doing voiceover, I really had trouble laughing in a genuine way. I just couldn't get there for some reason, and now now I can just dive into it, and it sounds hopefully fairly genuine. Also, when I do action, I've never told this to an interviewer before. When I do action sounds like I almost immediately get the hiccups, which is very difficult when you're an action voice actor, and so that's pretty embarrassing. It takes me a long time to get all of the action sounds done. As far as writing goes, writing is a complex process, and I think it's just what I'm really focusing on right now is nailing all of the different parts of screenplay structure and making sure that I have those story turns where I need them and that they're, they work to their maximum effect. And really, really the biggest struggle in the whole industry is getting things made. So, I'll have a ton of projects and, maybe one or two will get made at a time. And I'm lucky to have that ratio. But that's really where the truly frustrating work comes in is getting people to give you millions of dollars to set up movies or TV shows.
Could you maybe give us an overall impression of a voice actor's career, like its challenges, its benefits, any advice for any budding young stars that might even be in the chat?
Yeah, well, like I say, I think that voiceover is the best job in the world. It's super fun. People are really nice. You do it for 4 hours, you get paid fairly well, and off you go. Getting voiceover work can be very difficult, very frustrating. I could not live at the lifestyle level that I live if I was just a voiceover actor. And I'm very grateful that I became a screenwriter, that I had that opportunity on X-Men, and it affords me a nice house and a couple of nice cars, and I get to travel and have a nice life. And that's very difficult for most. It's really a very small percentage of voiceover actors that make a serious living at it, like Maurice LaMarche or Tara Strong or Jennifer Hale or Grey DeLisle. They're the superstars of the industry, and even as well known as I am, I still have to sort of scrounge for work, and so while it is a great industry, you really have to work extremely hard to get into that upper echelon where you're making serious money, because basically a voiceover job pays you the guild Screen Actors Guild minimum is about $1,000 for 4 hours, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But if you only work, once a month or once every 6 months, you can't survive on that. So it's a struggle, and it does, and you really need to take it seriously as a professional. You need to take lessons. You need to learn to develop different voices. You need to learn to accept rejection again and again and again. And and you probably need to have a second job through most of it. So
so
it's really fun, but the career is difficult.
I remember with Alec Guinness, he pointed out when he negotiated the contract for doing the Star Wars movies that he'd actually done it on a percentage basis. So what's the situation with Screen Actors Guild? Do they always do it as a flat rate of X amount of dollars per hour, or in the game industry, do you sometimes come across those situations of, well, we'll give you 3%, we'll give you 5% as your fee for the game?
No, that never happens. Yeah, I believe the story with Alec Guinness and the rest of the Star Wars cast is that George Lucas couldn't pay them much, so he offered them each 1% of the movie's profit, which nobody thought was going to be anything, because nobody thought they were going to see the movie, and then of course they got to be very, very wealthy off of it. I may be wrong, but that's the story as I heard it. That does not happen in games. So for movies and TV, if you do a voiceover job and you do 4 hours, it's like I say, $1,000. If you can negotiate double scale, it's $2,000. If it's a TV show and it runs on network or whatever, you get residuals. So every time it plays, they send you a little bit of money, and that's typically how it goes. The same thing with screenwriting. So every time you buy an Xmen DVD, for example, if anybody still buys DVDs, I get 5 cents from that.
Kind of similar to a singer. They'll get so many cents for every time
the
radio station play the song.
That's right. Yeah, those are royalties. These are residuals. Same thing. Gaming, however, the gaming industry is in lockstep trying to deny anybody getting additional payments beyond the first recording session payments. And on Metal Gear, for example, I managed to negotiate some extra payments if the game sold a certain amount of units or whatever. But I was in a very rare position in that I was already negotiating film deals, and I didn't need to come back and do Snake, so I was able to put a little more pressure on Konami to give me a sweeter deal. But generally, nobody gets additional payments on video game voice work, which again is what makes it a difficult career to survive in.
Yeah,
to pay your bills.
It's a very volatile industry to work in, and if there's one, you can go for a job working in admin, and the company will say, well, we found somebody who's got a little bit more experience. It's exactly the same in the video game industry and in voiceovers and in acting as well. It's somebody who maybe just has that little bit more than what you can offer in that role. They're always going to go for that, aren't they? More likely.
Well, that can be true, but it's not necessarily about experience. It's about who nails the audition. If I'm working as a director or something, and I'm listening to voice auditions, and somebody just comes in and they've never done anything before, but they're just the voice, and you go, oh my God, that's exactly how I saw it, or that's so much better than the way I envisioned it. You could get that job, but it's entirely. It's not random, but it's very difficult to know what people are looking for.
Yeah.
Like I say, that I didn't do the Snake voice, the classic Snake voice to get the part. I developed it after I got the part. So, and I wasn't, I was a working voice actor, but not, a star or hugely well known or anything. So, just something about my attitude. Actually, frankly, I think Kojima cast me because I was in a movie called Guyver Dark Hero, which he was a fan of. So I think that's really how I got the part. But so it's like, you could do 100 auditions and not get anywhere and think that you're horrible, and then you just do one audition where you do the specific voice and it's got this specific energy, and they just go, yeah, that, I want that, and they'll hire you. So it's such a, as Bart Simpson said, Hollywood is a horrible bitch goddess.
What sort of stuff do you actually get up to in your spare time, David? I know before we went live with stream, you touched on some aspects of gaming that you actually get up to. Would you mind talking about that for a few minutes?
I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chat again. Say again.
So, before we went live, you mentioned about some of the gaming that you actually get up to in your spare time. Could you kind of go into that? Have you since you actually started doing the voice work on SWTOR, have you actually played the game?
I haven't. I really only play on consoles because my computer is where I work. That's where I write scripts and stuff. And so I feel like it's a slippery slope to start playing on my laptop. But I really would like to play it. I've been through so many adventures on that game, and it'd be really cool to play it through from the beginning if possible. But I mostly play. I have what do I have? I have a Xbox 360. I have a Nintendo GameCube. I have a PlayStation 4, and I have an Xbox One. And typically, people send me, like producers will send me video games they want me to adapt for movies. So I get a lot of free video games, which is cool. And then on my own, I love Star Wars games. I played Jedi Fallen Order. I was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 last night. I play the ship games almost exclusively. So if you've ever been killed by Renowned Coast, that's me. So please don't tag me for friendship. I don't play with anybody else. Playing with other people wakes me up.
I could just imagine you're going to get targeted.
Although I'm happy to be your friend.
You're going to get targeted a lot more in matches now for that.
I know. I certainly will. They'll be trying to kill Solid Snake, which they do all the time, and they don't realize it. So I play all kinds of games, and you know what I like to do? I like to go back and say, instead of getting hung up on whatever the latest big game is, like I recently bought Cyberpunk 2077, and beyond the glitches and everything, I just really didn't enjoy the game very much, and so it really annoys me when I pay $60 for a new game, and it's not great. So I apologize to any Cyberpunk fans out there. I'm sure it's excellent. But what I like to do, so I played a great old Call of Duty, the World War II game, and then I was like, what are the best Call of Duty games? And you look them up, and you get like Modern Warfare 3 or something for $2, and I'll play that, and it's amazing. And so I kind of like to look at retro games and find out what the best of them are, rather than trying to find out what the newest games are. And I think that I kind of wish more. I think a lot of kids get drawn into getting the newest, latest thing, and that's not always the best.
Yeah.
So there's a way to save money if you like.
I totally agree with you, and I still stand by that. Old is gold. When you look at some of the games that we had back in the 90s, the 2000s, we had Metal Gear, we had Zelda, we had GoldenEye, Mario, and then as you start going further and further in, then it starts getting a little bit more typical, I suppose, with the games. Like you said there with Call of Duty, it gets a little bit more repetitive of what the end game is, and it doesn't lead to being a classic, it just leads to being repetition. And the older games bring out so much quality.
Well, and it's like the Assassin's Creed games, which seem to be like half of them are amazing and half of them just feel kind of half-assed. And again, I don't like to dog on other artists' work. Those games are incredible, but I just think you get a lot greater value if you just look up what are the absolute best Assassin's Creed games and start with those, as opposed to just what's the latest, most expensive game. I have not played, to the chat, I have not played the MSX Metal Gear games yet. I don't even know where to find those. I have played through a number of Metal Gear games, particularly 1 and 3, multiple times. I'd like to play 4 again, but I don't think I have it handy. And somebody else said, "Oh, if David woke up one day and found himself in the Star Wars universe, what would be the first thing he'd do?" I think I would go to the cantina, hitch a ride on the Millennium Falcon, and then go kill the Emperor. That's just my nature.
Seems pretty good. With the changes that happened with Konami unexpectedly, as far as them opting to take on Kiefer Sutherland rather than yourself, if you were in a situation where Hideo was to contact you and say, "David, I'd like to work with you on another project," is that something that you would actually consider, or was it a case of that there was some differences and bad blood there at all between you guys, or was it just a case of that they wanted to go in a different direction and try something completely different?
Well, I can't speak to the motives behind it. I was never told why that occurred. It wasn't handled particularly well. If Mr. Kojima wanted to call me up and make it right, then yeah, I would consider that. I think he's a genius, and it would be, it's always an honor to work on games that I know are going to be incredibly groundbreaking and brilliant. But at the same time, I don't sit around waiting for Hideo Kojima to call me. I'm producing 2 TV shows. I've just written 2 movies, and it would take a bit of cajole, let's say.
Yeah. When it came to working with Bryan Singer on the first X-Men movie, I know you said that you'd rewritten a number of the scenes in the movie. How much flexibility did you actually have on being able to create those scenes, and can you give the guys in the stream an idea of maybe 1 or 2 of those scenes, perhaps, as to what you've actually done that defined that movie as a success?
Yeah, it was a weird process. I had, Bryan would say, "Here's what I think we're missing from the script," and then I would have total freedom to sit down and sort of take everything I knew from the X-Men comic books and write whatever I wanted. And then Bryan would go over it and say, "Okay, I like this, move this over here. This is horrible. Stop writing crap. This is great." Well, I don't know if you ever said this is great, but this is acceptable. This will be in the movie, and so on and so forth. And that's how we put the script together. But in addition to that, for example, there's a moment. You probably remember the scene where we meet Wolverine in the cage, and he's fighting in the cage match.
Yeah.
So afterwards, there's a scene where this guy comes up behind him, and he's supposed to pull a knife on him and say, "I want my money back. I know that you're a mutant," basically. And so we didn't have an action scene written for that. We just had the dialogue confrontation. So I stood in the bar where Hugh Jackman did this scene, and I said, "Okay." So I sat at the bar. I said, "You come up behind me with the knife," and he does. And then I came around, and I did a bunch of martial arts, so I have some fight skills. So I turned around, blocked the knife, put him up against the wall, and put the claw into his face, and then said, "Okay." And then the claws can come out on either side of his throat. Then, and he threatens him, and then you see the tip of a shotgun come in against his head, and the bartender says, "Get out of my bar, freak," and you think it's over, and then Wolverine turns around and goes like this and slices this guy while he's still got this guy here. And I did this pose, and I was like, "That's how you reveal both sets of claws." And of course, that's how we did it, and it was cool. I literally got to act out the action sequence, and they filmed it the way that I had come up with it. So to see that become an iconic scene was the dream of my life. I always wanted to work in the movies, and that was such a ridiculous opportunity, and that it still kind of chokes me up to this day.
What about with the
I did
scene
this
with Nightcrawler in the White House? Was that something that you had an input in as well?
Yeah, I wrote that scene. That's the only scene I ever wrote. So the opening. He's talking about the opening of X-Men 2, where Nightcrawler infiltrates the White House and attacks the president. We had opened X-Men 1 with a scene in Auschwitz with Magneto, and that scene was written by Christopher McQuarrie, my brilliant genius screenwriter friend who wrote Usual Suspects, and is now directing the Mission Impossible movies. So when we came to X-Men 2, I was like, we need a scene that's as impactful as that, and I think Nightcrawler should infiltrate the White House, try to kill the president, and just see how powerful mutants are against normal guys with guns. And one of the producers was like, "You can't do that. You can't have him attack the president." And I kill the president. Who cares? So I was like, "That's why it's striking. It'll be shocking for people." So I wrote the scene, and it's one of the few scenes that never got rewritten. It just went straight to the storyboard artist and the production designer, and they just made it. And then Brian directed the hell out of it. I mean, it's just one of the most spectacular scenes I've ever seen. So yeah, that one I was very proud of as well.
Yeah, I think with the White House scene in particular, that was probably the defining scene in the first movie. That was what kind of really set the severity of the scene for mutants against humans and the differences between them, and that was certainly my favourite scene within the movie for sure. What about with when you had done the writing on X-Men 2? What kind of how much of an involvement did you have in that one compared to, say, the first movie?
So the first movie, they were sort of opposite. So the first movie, I came in, Chris McQuarrie had already done a pass on the script, and Ed Solomon who wrote Men in Black, who originally wrote the initial drafts, and then I was brought in to do like 13 months of revisions and drafts, and I worked on set and made up lines on set and all that stuff. On X-Men 2, I wrote the first draft and developed it for about a year. But when we went to go to shoot it, I was producing a television pilot in Australia, and so I had to fly to Australia. And so the writing team, Dan Harris and Mike Doherty, came in, and they did the on-set rewrites and did all the revisions that Brian makes as he makes those films. So sadly, I was not there on set for X-Men 2, but I'm very proud of the work that I did in the movie, that everybody did in the movie, and it came out pretty great. It's probably my favorite movie I ever was involved with.
Did you choose not to be involved in the writing process beyond X-Men 2 within that franchise, or was it something that was just never really discussed with you?
No, I got fired, and all of us got fired by the studio when Brian opted to do Superman Returns for Warner Brothers. Fox fired us. So that was that.
Okay. So what I'd like to do now, David, is...
Guys, I'm sorry, Kieran. I apologize for this echo. That's going to be so annoying. I don't know what to do about it. If anybody has any technical advice, please let me know. But
I don't get the echo on my side, which is weird.
Yeah. Here, why don't I unplug? I'm going to unplug my headphones and see if. So, can you hear me, Kieran?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Does it sound okay, or?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. How is that?
Okay.
How is that for chat? Let's see.
Chat, let me know if I'm still echoing. Still echoing. Okay, great. All right. Sorry, guys. I don't know what to do about it.
Might be a broadcast issue, because I'm not getting the echo on my end. It seems to be okay for you, settings-wise. Might be an issue on Twitch's side. What I'd actually like to do at the moment, David, is to kind of take a bit of inspiration from both Larry King and James Lipton here, and maybe go for a few quick fire kind of questions just to kind of give us some short and sweet ideas of stuff that you've done over the years. What is your most favourite project that you've worked on to date?
I don't know. My most favorite project. It's really hard to say because they're all, especially the ones that get made and come out great, are all special to me. You know, Metal Gear 1 was amazing. Metal Gear 4 was amazing. Snake Eater. I guess working on that first X-Men movie and the fact that I was there on set with the actors, watching the sets get built, watching the stunts get designed, that was the most amazing experience of my life. And
I think I've managed to find the source of the echo, courtesy of Precise Thumb Sizer. Thank you very, very, very much. It's because of the NDI source that we had to set up. Thank you very much. Guys, let's give a round of applause there to Precise. Thank you for the help, my man. Sorry for interrupting there, David.
No, that's all right, and I apologize that all of my stories were in echo mode. I hope that they came through anyway.
We've got twice as much David, so we're definitely not going to complain. So I would say that X-Men experience was the most amazing experience of my life. And then, did you have a follow-up question? There's quite a few, to be honest.
Okay.
Who is the actor or voice actor that you most enjoyed working with?
Oh God. Well, that's not fair. They're all my friends. I love. Oh God, they're all so good. I think Otacon, Christopher Randolph. Snake and Otacon just have such a bromance. Bordering on romance that they're such a husband and wife team. We have so much fun recording those characters, and and I really love Chris as a person and an actor, and so those are really fun. But look, I love Jennifer Hale. I love Paul Eiding. I loved working with Tasia as Sniper Wolf. I've worked with like Margot Kidder and some legendary voice people. I did an audition, I think, for a beer commercial with oh God, I can't remember her name. The woman who plays Milhouse on The Simpsons.
Oh, Nancy Cartwright.
No, that's Bart. Who plays Milhouse? Pamela Hayden.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did this audition together, and she was wearing a Simpsons jacket, and it said Milhouse across the front. And I'm like, no, you're Milhouse? And so that was really cool. And I got to work with Ed Asner, who played J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man series. Paul Winfield. I mean, it's just every one of them is epic, and there's no way I could say one, but I guess I did, which is Otacon.
What profession other than your own would you like to practice if you had the opportunity?
I always kind of wanted to be an assassin. I thought that'd be cool, like an international assassin, and travel the world and shoot bad guys. And but that seemed like a lot of work and a difficult job to get into. So I went with the entertainment industry because that's super easy.
What profession would you absolutely not want to practice under any circumstances?
Anything with paperwork or math. It's not something I'm interested in. I don't want to denigrate anybody's profession. I think you can find joy in any job, but I am fortunate in that my job is, trying to make people happy, and it's a lot of work, but it's pretty cushy, So,
could you tell us something that people don't know about you?
I don't know what people don't know about me. What don't people know about me? I don't know. I can't think of anything that hasn't been discussed. I'm a pretty open book. I mean, I grew up in Japan. I speak, a little Japanese, a little French. I used to get into a lot of fights when I was younger. That was pretty fun. I got. They tried to pick my pocket on a train. I got in a fight with like 5 guys, and I got punched in the back of the ear. And I went to a youth hostel, and I checked to get a room, and I had blood all down the back of my neck, and this young lady was like, oh, what happened to your ear? And I was like, oh, I got in a scrap with 4 or 5 guys on the metro. And she's like, oh, poor thing, that's sad. And I'm like, I know, we should have dinner. And then we did. So not many people know that story. I don't know.
What has been your best fan experience to date?
I will answer that in a second. I just saw something in the chat. Is there a line of dialogue that David has written that he considers to be 100% brilliant, or a quote from the movie that is his favorite? I can't say that it's 100% brilliant, but this is a good sort of screenwriting moment. When we did X-Men 2, Bryan Singer said to me, we have to explain to the audience why Wolverine has amnesia and the most powerful psychic in the world, Charles Xavier, can't solve it. And so that's a weird concept to have to describe. So I came up with the line. So I wrote this scene where Wolverine confronts Xavier in Cerebro and says, I want you to look into my mind again. I want you to find my memories. And I had to come up with a way to describe why he couldn't. And the line I wrote was, Wolverine, the mind is not a box to be opened and closed. The mind is a beehive with a million different compartments. And if I was just to reach in to try to find your memories, I could destroy it. That's not even what the line was, but it was something like that. And it was the image of the box and the beehive that I was very proud of. I was like, that's so simple. Everybody knows what a box is. Everybody can picture a beehive and how fragile that is. And so I was very, very, very proud of that line. Also, the moment where Xavier, in that same scene, tells him to put out a cigar, and he doesn't have anywhere to do it, so he puts it out on his hand because he's Wolverine. He just heals, and pain is relative to him.
Yeah.
So I was very, very proud of those 2 moments.
So what was your best fan experience up until now?
My best fan experience. Well, again, I have so much fun going to these different Comic-Cons, and I meet all these amazing people. I meet so many, lovely fans that are so sweet and so happy to meet me, and I'm so happy to meet them. I get to go to these incredible cities. For example, last summer sucked, but the summer before that, I did 2 shows in Perth and Sydney, and you spend 2 weeks hanging out in Australia, and Elijah Wood was on was at both those shows, and so we all hang out in the back room, all the celebrities, and the moment that Elijah Wood, who I'm an enormous fan of, realized that I was Solid Snake, and his giant blue eyes got so wide, and he was so happy to meet me, I was like, that's pretty cool. So when somebody you admire, like a friend of mine was having lunch with Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, and I'm a huge fan of them. And then he mentioned me, and Gerard Way was like, "Oh my God, I'm such a fan of David Hayter," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like that sort of thing is really, really cool. So there's the celebrity aspect, and then just the people, you know. Okay, I'll tell you my this is my favorite fan experience. So I was in Toronto at the Fan Expo about, I don't know, 6 years ago or so, and this young woman came up to the table. She waited in line, and she was super shy and about 20 years old. And she had black hair, and it was sort of hanging down over her eyes, and she was very, very quiet and shy. And a lot of the fans are very shy. And she said, "Well, Mr. Hayter, it's nice to meet you. You know, you're awesome." And I said, "Well, you're awesome." And she like looked at me and said, "Oh, no, me, I'm nothing." And I was like, "Hang on." And I came around the table and I, you know, held her by the shoulders and I said, "Please don't say that. You know, you only have one go round in this life. And if you say that about yourself, that's how other people will treat you. And you have nothing to lose by realizing that you're awesome. And you have as much right to happiness and success and, you know, as anybody else," something like that. And she kind of nodded, and I thought, well, you know, she might think I'm a pushy jerk, but you know, I felt like I had to say it. And the next year I went back to Fan Expo, and this woman came up to my desk, and she was about 21 years old, and she had blonde hair and was dressed like Eva, and she came up with super confidence and leaned across the table, and she was like, "You don't remember me, but you changed my life last year." And I said, "I absolutely remember you, and that's super cool." And she had changed her whole life, changed her whole attitude, started a podcast and started pursuing her dreams and was like super confident. And that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in a fan interaction. So
it's remarkable when you do get really good experiences like that. But would you say you've had any really bad experiences? I mean, some people in the industry have had to deal with crazy stalkers and people sending them weird mail and stuff like that. Have you ever had to encounter anything like that up until now?
Sort of. People are pretty respectful of me. I think because they've seen me kill so many people, but in the games. But I have a lot of people. I have a lot of imposters. Like, I'm not on Facebook. I've never been on Facebook, but there's, you know, you look on Facebook, there's like 20 David Hayters or Solid Snake Hayter or blah blah blah, and some of them try to like hit on the voice cast or other actresses and stuff like that, which I don't appreciate. And me and my reps try to shut that down. You know, some people get a little stalkery or a little obsessed, but for the most part, people are very, like I say, they're usually really respectful and super nice, and no, I don't have too much problem with it at all, really.
What sort of stuff do you tend to?
Sometimes their hands are a little sweaty. I can shake their hand. That's, you know, got to deal with that.
What sort of stuff do you tend to watch at home in your free time? Do you tend to stick to movies? Do you catch up on cable TV? Do you catch up on your box sets that you've missed while you've been recording or writing? Or, you know, what sort of stuff do you tend to get up to? Do you tend to just miss the TV stuff altogether and go traveling?
No, I mostly watch great movies, trying to sort of analyze story structure and just because I enjoy them. But it's also an amazing time for TV. It's also a pandemic, so I'm stuck inside all the time. So I've been watching a lot of TV series. You know what I tend to do is I try to watch like the pilots of a lot of new shows. You can't keep up with everything now, but I watch the pilot and then I get an idea what the show is, and then I have an idea what's out there. But I just watched The Queen's Gambit, which was astounding, and Chernobyl, which was astounding, and you know, and Ted Lasso, which I loved, and Cobra Kai, which is like my favorite show. So there's all kinds of things that I really love.
I remember hearing a story, David. Something in regards to a Porsche.
Yeah.
So what's the situation with
What about
what's the situation with that then? Because this is going back to around when you would, if I remember, you were doing Xmen. And
Well, I bought a Porsche after. I mean, it's a cliche, but I always wanted a Porsche, and so I bought one after X-Men came out, and then suddenly I was wealthy. I don't know what story specifically you're talking about. One time my mother borrowed it to go up the coast and then disappeared for like 3 days, and I was like, oh my God, she's driven it off a cliff or something, because it was a very powerful car. But it turned out she had just gone to visit some friends and didn't bother to tell me where she was going.
was that the one car that you had got rid of that you regretted getting rid of?
Yes, that is the one. I've had a lot of beautiful cars, but that first Porsche was a 96 turbo on it, and it was just gorgeous. And it would be worth about the same today as what I sold it for then. So I wish I had kept it, but we just didn't have the garage space to keep an extra car, fortunately. But I may, who knows, when my daughter gets old enough and moves out of the house, maybe I'll buy another one and keep that for weekends.
I understand you've recently done, well, it might be recent time-wise, it depends on how long ago you had to do the recordings, but you did some storyline voice work for BioWare for Star Wars The Old Republic. Have they given you any indications of where things are going moving forward, like over the next 12 months, 2 years, whether there's going to be more story available there for you, or whether there's going to be particular work that they'd like you to do for them?
No, they don't tell me anything. Literally what happens is a month before they want me to record, they send me an email saying, hey, here are some dates. We line it up. If I'm in another country shooting, it's Star Wars, so they just find a studio in that country. I've done it in Toronto, and it's very cool, but they don't tell me anything. And I don't see the scripts. I don't know the stories until I sit down to do the individual lines, and then they just say, okay, here you're confronting the Emperor, or here you're in love with so and so and you're about to lose them, and that's how it works. I don't get any advance information.
And I think
and Flautista, it's Flautista. I know Flautista. Do I have any plans to visit Mexico as a guest of the Comic Cons, or maybe as a tourist? I love Mexico. I love going down to the Yucatan and scuba diving. I've done it many, many times. And I've been to Mexico City. I've been to SWTOR. I will definitely be back in Mexico when we are able to travel again. And if there's a Comic-Con, even better.
And I think certainly for my final question, I mean, I'm sure chat will still have tons and tons of questions, no doubt. But without looking at that you've done the Jedi Knight storyline, if you had an option of being a Jedi or a Sith, what would your preference be?
Well, I would have to be a Jedi. I feel like, look, it's cool to be a Sith, and I don't mind playing them in games, but I would imagine it's like having a head full of worms, and you can't live your life in hate and anger and be happy. That's just not me. So I always wanted to be heroic, and I wanted to do the right thing for people, and so light side Jedi all the way.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I'm friends with Ray Park. I'm friends with Ray Park, who plays Darth Maul, and he's all about the Sith life. So someday it's gonna come head to head.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, of course, for taking your time with us today, David. I really, really, really appreciate your time. I'm sure the community appreciate your time as well. If we do have any other questions that pop up in chat over the next minute or two, which perhaps catch your eye, then feel free to answer those. But I've asked all the questions that I wanted to be able to ask myself.
Well, I appreciate it. They were great questions, and I really appreciate you diving into Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'm so proud of that game, and I hope people enjoy it. The chat asks, did MGS4 do any damage to my voice? No. I can do Old Snake all day, but it was quite a workout to get it done. And I guess that's about it. But thank you so much, and please follow Kieran and that duck sauce, because that's the secret sauce, man. Can't do without it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we shall wrap up the interview for today, David. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your weekend as well.
Thank you. You too. Much love to you all.
Bye. Well, guys, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. He's such a gent. We've been talking on and off over the last couple of weeks to arrange this interview. David, I really appreciate the time that you've given us tonight to be able to do this interview, especially, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Guys, thank you as well for joining us. Thank you to those of you who've submitted questions in the chat and also in Discord, and people who've DM'd me the questions as well. And I am going to wrap my side of the stream up in a moment, but I think we should carry on this hype and this love. I think we should keep that going. So how about, because we wanted to do the interview with SWTOR at the front of it, and we've touched on Metal Gear, we've touched on Watchmen, we've touched on X-Men, and a bit more of a personal side to David as well, which I really appreciate. I think we should go and raid Kitty Kisses within the SWTOR community. You guys know what Kitty's about. We'll go and show him a little bit of love over there. I may be streaming tomorrow night. If it's not tomorrow night, it will be Monday night. But keep an eye out on Twitter and on Discord. Mods, can we get a link to our Discord in the chat, please, for anybody who wishes to come and join us over there? And I will make sure to keep in touch with you all. But until then, make sure that you all stay awesome and stay saucy, of course. The VOD will be on YouTube in the next 12 hours, guys. So we're going to go and raid Kitty Kisses, and I will catch you guys next time. Take it easy.